Hello, and welcome to Breast Cancer Conversations, a podcast brought to you by SurvivingBreastCancer.org. I am Laura Carfing, breast cancer survivor and founder of SurvivingBreastCancer.org, a nonprofit organization providing community, education, and resources to empower those diagnosed with breast cancer and their caregivers from day one and beyond. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Breast Cancer Conversations. Thank you so much for tuning in. It means the world to me that you show up week after week when we drop new content. If this is your first time listening to us and you found us, welcome to the community. I am so glad you are here. Today, we are exploring palliative care through the lived experiences of people living with metastatic breast cancer. Palliative care, also sometimes referred to as supportive care, is often misunderstood. Many people hear the term and immediately think of hospice care or end-of-life care. But palliative care is not the same as hospice. According to the National Cancer Institute, palliative care can begin at any point during cancer treatment and has a focus on improving quality of life. Our guests today share their unique experiences navigating palliative care while living with metastatic disease. Some were referred to palliative care early on. Some had to advocate for a referral. Some learned about palliative care from others in the breast cancer community. And one guest, who was not seeing a palliative care physician, decided on the spot during today's episode that she was going to ask about it at her next upcoming doctor's appointment. How amazing is that? I am so grateful for Aimee, Hillary, Kacie, Paula, and Joyce for joining me today. Welcome to the conversation. Today, we are talking about palliative care, which can also be referred to as supportive care. And there are some nuances even within those two definitions. But what we really want to make sure that people understand really what is palliative care, when to ask for it, what can you expect when you're going to see palliative care team members, doctors, physicians, and really just reminding people that it's not this big, scary term. It does not equate to hospice. It does not mean that you're giving up. It does not mean this is your last option. And all of those misconceptions that we tend to hear when someone tells us we're going to refer you to a palliative care doctor, or when you ask and have to advocate to get access to palliative care. So, all of that is to say, I am joined with an amazing team with Kacie, Joyce, Hillary, Paula, and Aimee, all living with metastatic disease, all having unique experiences, and are here today to enlighten us about what palliative care is not, and how to find resources. And Paula, with you, if you want to share a little bit of your story, how long you've been living with metastatic disease, and maybe take me back to like the first time you were introduced to the idea and the term and the concept of what palliative care is.
I was diagnosed initially in 2017, and then I was diagnosed metastatic in 2021. I did not start seeing palliative care until last year. Care team had not suggested or encouraged me to go to it. It was through other survivors that I really learned about it and learned what it meant, and that it's not just for those that are end of life. And so to me, palliative care is best defined as the whole picture. It's like they want to cover not just your physical health. They also want to make sure that you're doing okay mentally, financially, emotionally. They ask about all of those things and kind of try to offer to help in any way that they can with any of those. But yeah, I hadn't heard about it through my care team. I heard about it through fellow survivors.
Yeah.
And they have really, really helped me overall with my pain that I have with the bone mets. So it's been a blessing for me.
Thanks for sharing that overview. And I definitely want to circle back to that because the importance of finding our breast cancer community and asking people, how are they navigating X, Y, and Z, that we can empower ourselves and get more information and go back and ask our care teams, can I have access to palliative care? Who should I be seeing for this? So I want to circle back on that. Hillary or Kacie, were either of you offered palliative care as part of your treatment plan?
I was offered palliative care during my early stage diagnosis to help with the side effects from the really harsh treatment I was getting. And that just stayed with me through just about a year later when I was diagnosed with MBC. So like Paula, when my doctor first said, make an appointment with our palliative, and I was like, what does that mean? I'm dying. No, this can't be. But, just within the explanation, and then after meeting the palliative care doctor, I knew that that couldn't be further from the truth. Like, she was honestly there to provide comfort to me in any way possible. So I was glad that my oncologist kind of handed me off that way. I wouldn't have known to ask otherwise.
You bring up a really good point, also being exposed to palliative care with an early stage diagnosis. And so understanding that palliative care is not necessarily exclusive for people living with terminal stage 4 cancer, but can also be offered to anybody regardless of stage. Kacie, what was your experience?
My experience was a little weird in that before I was ever diagnosed with cancer, I sat next to a palliative care physician on an airplane flight. And they happened to have had a TED Talk and was telling me about this. And so I went on and I found the TED Talk, How to Die Well was the title of that talk. And I think it was a few months later, I was diagnosed MBC, and that physician and I had actually exchanged information. So I reached out to him and said, I guess I'm going to need this. How, is there someone in the area that you would recommend? And he shot me back a name, and I made an appointment, and I sort of circumvented the whole system. But I will say that my palliative care specialist, I refer to as my quality of life doc, when I was going through the curative intent treatment for my oligometastatic disease, they were the ones that helped me with the symptoms that my oncologist just did not. My oncologist gave me some tips and tricks for this is what we normally do, but it wasn't working. And it was having, an appointment with someone who truly listened that got me to what I needed. And some of the things that were offered were maybe that's a little much for what I want to do. But in the same breath, I would not do this experience without palliative care. And I will shout it from the rooftops that everyone should have it. It's not just for those who are dying. It's for anyone who's suffering. They help with diabetes. They help with heart disease. Anyone is suffering, you can use them. And I'll step off my soapbox now, but everyone should have one.
Aimee, as you acknowledged earlier in the conversation that you're not seeing palliative care at this time, can you tell me a little bit about your diagnosis and the decision to or not to see palliative care during this particular moment? Has it come up at all in conversations with your doctors?
Not at all. I was diagnosed in Idaho in 2017, breast cancer. In 2019, had a tumor on my brain and took care of that. And then it came back again in the dura around my brain. So I've had a lot of that. In Idaho, it was a wonderful hospital, but they did offer services like acupuncture and massage, which was great. But never have I heard palliative doctor. Even here in Nebraska, I have not heard that at all. And so Kacie and Paula, I need to get your names. Besides, from Kacie and Paula in Omaha, yes, they've talked about it, but it never really hit me until this right now.
Yeah, and I'm sure that resonates with a lot of our listeners as well when they're like, okay, what is this word? Aimee, when you hear the word palliative care, what comes to mind? What's your first thought?
They found my initial metastatic in my brain through a seizure I had in Idaho. And then I've had another one here recently, and my medications are just messing with me really bad. So when I'm hearing this, I'm hearing help that I need to understand these medications because the doctors aren't helping. I'm not getting the answers I need directly from my neuro. So
yeah, seems like an extra layer of support, an extra layer of help.
Yes, I need it because I do need this. I'm hearing.
Yes, the conversation alone is helping. I appreciate that. So Joyce, you said similarly, you have kind of a complex scenario as well with palliative care. Let me start with you by asking, when you hear the term palliative care, what comes to mind? I want to take a quick moment and tell you something I'm really excited about. You can now download the survivingbreastcancer.org app directly from the App Store or Google Play. Just search for survivingbreastcancer.org. It is completely free to download, and inside you will have access to all of our support groups, educational programs and webinars, all of our blog content and articles, podcast episodes, and community features to connect with others who understand what you're going through. Everything in one place, because navigating breast cancer shouldn't require 15 open browser tabs. Download the app today.
Not what actually happened. I have an idea of palliative care, and my idea was, massage, acupuncture, groups, something that would be provided almost in an adjunct facility, right? Not that it would be provided by the oncology team. Because to be honest with you, even though I'm a nurse, I'm a public health nurse, I know nothing about oncology until I got sick. And I found out a lot of things about oncology. But yeah. This is my rural experience. I will say that. And I don't claim to know everybody's rural experience, but since I am new to rural living, I think it kind of hits me harder because it's like, well, that's different, right? So we have two huge hospitals in the city. There's 16,000 people that live here. And I started with cancer clinic because it was in the same medical group as my primary care doctor. They didn't have a doctor. It was being run by nurse practitioners. There wasn't an oncologist anywhere in sight, and nobody knew that. And they ran that place for 3 years like that before they finally had to say, waving the white flag, we can't find an oncologist that's willing to commute to Warsaw, Indiana. I'm like, okay, I can understand some of that. But so, we didn't have palliative care. I barely had medical care. I did go to a second opinion doctor down in Indianapolis at the university because I knew enough to know that that would probably be a pretty high level physician. And she's very well known. The problem is it's 2 hours from where I live. So commuting down there is not realistic. But she took me off my Verzenio long enough to detox my body and lower my dosage so that I could keep living with taking the medication. So that's what So then when they closed the clinic, the first clinic, I went to Fort Wayne, which is an hour away. They have a huge, by comparison, cancer clinic in Fort Wayne, but it's a different hospital. So I had to transfer care to a different medical group. Now, what was interesting was the first year that I was in that clinic from my primary care doctor, he put me on all of the medications I needed to be able to stay on my treatment medications. So all of the stomach stuff I needed to be able to tolerate, and I didn't know then, but I know now that was palliative care. So that was the first clinic. The second clinic had a huge palliative care team. They had a nurse practitioner that does medications. They have, financial people. Anyway, on and on and on. So I got used to a nurse practitioner who is specialized in oncology, prescribing all of my oncology meds. And that worked. It still works. And the thing that's interesting is I said something to my oncologist about pain meds, and she didn't even want to talk to me about it. She referred me immediately to the nurse practitioner, which I'm okay. If that's how it's divided up, I'm just show me the path, right? Show me which door to go through.
Exactly.
So one of the weird things about cancer for me personally has been that it's actually been a blessing. And I don't say that very often because it's probably a pretty tough pill to swallow. But I have lived with chronic pain my whole life and could never find pain management. I've got pain management. So there are things that have bugged me my whole life that are now fixed because I'm getting care for something else. It works. And then when Medicare decided they weren't going to do telehealth anymore, this hospital, I don't know how many they make these decisions, but one branch said, we're not doing telehealth anymore. And a bunch of the other branches said, okay, we are. So the oncology branch was one of the branches that said, we aren't. So now I'm back in the town I live in. And I have an oncologist, a nurse practitioner that works as an oncology nurse practitioner. And I have one person in my palliative care team. And she's not a nurse, she's a social worker. I mean, I understand.
So you've had this entire wild experience.
It's just
very
nuts.
circuitous.
It's what it is. And I don't know how typical that is, but I'm a nurse and I'm not shy about voicing my opinion or saying what I need. And I can't even imagine, like somebody who doesn't even know that palliative care exists, right? Now, the two things I would
Right.
love to get is massage and acupuncture. And I'm hoping my solution to that is going to be when I get on a dual insurance plan for Medicare and Medicaid, that they will pay for those too.
Yes.
So sometimes
Amazing.
that's the other alternative too. Now, I don't know either the quality of my palliative care team because I'm a case manager. So I've found most of my resources myself because that's what I did. And the other issue is in this state, we have a huge demand and need for services and a couple of politicians that keep cutting services. So I don't know how difficult that is either, but that's hard on people.
It is.
Now I'm
What I
on disability,
appreciate
which
about
makes it easy.
What I
Easier.
appreciate about your story, Joyce, let me just pause you there for a moment because you're showing the messy side of navigating a cancer diagnosis. And for a lot of people, it's not a straight line. It's not, here's the roadmap and here are all the people on your care team. And I think that's why it's so important we provide this level of education, sharing with each other, with our listeners, with our community at survivingbreastcancer.org and other amazing nonprofits and organizations to say, who should be on my care team when I just hear the news that I have been diagnosed with breast cancer? And who are all the players that should support me? In my experience, I think maybe in one ear, someone mentioned I should see a social worker or a therapist, but it wasn't until literally like 12 months later when I was having, mental health concerns, was like, oh, wait, now I need to call that person in for backup and help because I didn't realize the trauma I was going through with a cancer diagnosis.
And where did you
So
write
just,
it down? Right? If your brain works like my brain, where did that was 12
oh
months
my gosh,
ago. Where did I put that?
I
Yeah.
know. So, Paula, I want to come back to you. So, hearing about palliative care and just, I'm kind of thinking and channeling Aimee's story as well. Okay, now friends are saying there's this thing, you can get help, they want to support you. How did you bring up the conversation with your doctor? What was your next step?
With just on my next appointment with my oncologist, we were talking about my pain, and I said, would you consider giving me a referral to palliative care? And she was like, absolutely. Put it in right then. And I think I had an appointment scheduled before the day was out. I didn't see her that day, but it was scheduled. But yeah,
So you got a
and
great affirmation. You asked for it, and there was like, absolutely,
yeah,
let's get you booked, which is
yep,
interesting to have that level of support and that enthusiasm to move so quickly, but without offering
yeah,
it to you initially. So
but not
again,
offering it.
I think there's
Yeah.
still this like disconnect.
I think my oncologist and many oncologists, they just get focused on, what they are in control of, like my
Yeah,
chemo and my blood work and that type of stuff. Sometimes they don't pause to think about, okay, what else should I be doing to help her? They get
exactly.
kind of narrow-minded, but that's not focus
Hmm.
in one area and don't stop to think about the rest of it. So,
Hillary, I wanted to ask you. So now that we know, right, we can advocate, we can ask for supportive care, we can ask for palliative care. Can you walk me through what an appointment would look like? What could someone expect when they get connected with a palliative care team?
I was really nervous at my first appointment because, I had nothing to base it on. But what the doctor really took a history, not just why I was there in the oncology area, but, through my life. Like, do I have depression, which I
Mm,
did. So, things she needed to know, anxiety, all the other kinds of things, what my home life was like. Was I working?
mm.
Just what was happening aside from the cancer. And that was the first time any of my providers asked any of these types of questions, aside from my breast surgeon early on, but I only saw her, those very few times. So it was like a breath of fresh air. And it really made me feel comfortable that she was asking me these things. I know that's part of her role, but she really opened the door for me being able to say or ask for anything. Nothing was off limits or silly or ridiculous, And that was really early on. And I do have to say, I've spoken with other folks about their palliative care doctors, and they say the same thing, that she was absolutely my favorite provider,
Mm.
because it wasn't just coming into the room and saying, "Oh, how are you feeling?" It's, "Hey, what's going on?" what have you been up to? And then, she really humanizes the face of the overall oncology team. So,
I love that.
initially fear, not knowing what to ask, and almost immediately comfort.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Kacie, what about you? What was your experience knowing that you had this amazing conversation with the gentleman on the flight? You saw a TED Talk, so you were already kind of privy to palliative care. But what was going through your mind during your first visit?
I would say similar to Hillary, I wasn't necessarily afraid so much as I didn't know what to expect. And it was a long appointment. Like, I think we spent an hour just chatting. And again, I would emphasize the best listener asked what I wanted to do in my free time and what mattered most to me to where if there was something that my oncology treatment was keeping me from or hindering me from, how can she make that happen for me? And it was little things like, I can't taste food anymore. And she's like, well, there's this treatment we can use. It's an option. Or I guess it was a great conversation. She's a great listener and I definitely felt cared for. It turns out in subsequent appointments, she wrote such good notes that one of the doctors asked me about cheesecake because I told her that I like to bake. And I was like, how did you hear this? And she was like, oh, it's in your notes. Your palliative care specialist wrote that in there. And I was like, well, okay, that's cool. Yes, I do. I like baking. I like making other people happy through food, right? And it was kind of, I guess, proof just of how well she was listening. And so when I came in with those complaints about, this isn't working or I'm suffering from this side effect, I felt truly seen and heard. And that's, again, why I will shout from the rooftops that everybody should have a quality of care physician, palliative care working with them.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm still oscillating between, as someone who has not actually ever experienced or done acupuncture, and when I get massage, it's either for lymphedema, drainage, or I'm pampering myself. I'm curious if someone wants to share what's in their toolbox. What makes it so unique in addition to the time that they're spending? What I'm hearing is that they're spending a lot of time. There's a lot of questions about whole person support, really establishing those relationships and being able to, as we were hearing earlier, like that whole person support and, not just the cancer, but life at home, life before cancer, what is going on emotionally, physically, mentally. I'm curious, like what's in their toolbox?
I'll jump right back into that. One of the biggest side effects that I dealt with was constipation, and to the point where I was getting like heartburn from being so full. And when I went to her, she was like, okay, well, let's get you some Senna. That's an option. And my oncologist literally told me to drink a Miralax every half an hour until I had a movement. And we all know when you're in the throes of treatment, it's hard enough to stay hydrated. So that just sounded like that was a hard no for me. That I'm not going to do that. There's no way I'm going to get through that. And my palliative care specialist gave me Linzess, which is an opioid-induced constipation treatment. And that saved my life. That was, instead of sitting on the toilet for hours struggling, well, not always hours, that's an exaggeration, but
sure, I know what you mean.
Sitting there struggling, just to get any movement, to actually having movement. And one of the other things, the exhaustion, just dealing from how much that wears you down. And my palliative care specialist was the one to suggest I get a handicap placard for my car so that I didn't have to walk so far when I needed to do things like make a grocery run. Because again, I'm on my own, I'm single, no one's bringing me groceries, right? And we all know how expensive cancer is. So, if I'm going to save on delivery, I'm going to go do that. That's going to be my adventure for the day. But at least I could park closer to and make that a little bit easier on myself. So that's just a couple of the things where my palliative care doc stepped up and was like, I've got you on this. These are things we can try. It may or may not work, but, at least we were moving towards things that were less standard, like here's some Imodium or here's some Miralax or, here, let me throw an opioid at it. Like, here's other things you can do that will hopefully work. So.
Yes, I appreciate those concrete examples, and really those examples really show not just the listening, but the creative ways that we might not even be thinking we could be asking for or exploring. And I appreciate also, Kacie, how you were saying, if someone's asking you to drink Miralax every 30 minutes and you're just like, that's just not going to happen, right? Like also knowing what's realistic for us.
Yes.
With having the mets in my bones, I'm sorry, I don't recall. I think it was Joyce that said that she's dealt with pain for forever, or all her life. I too have dealt with pain all of my life. I have a bad back. And then to get meds on top of that in my back, I was having significant pain. And it was really nice to go to a palliative care doctor that doesn't make you feel like you're drug seeking or that you're, selling it on the streets or whatever. My oncologist struggled with giving me my pain meds. That it was not her favorite thing to do. And to then go to palliative where she's like, yep, here you go. And here's a couple of refills. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to have to fight this every 30 days and whatever. And
That's
just
so
to have
helpful.
that trust, that I'm not going to abuse it. I mean, she recognizes that. And so,
That's
yeah.
great. That's great. I want to come back to that comment also, but before lingering on, because one of the questions I do want to have in discussion is, and I'll let people think about this because Aimee, I'm going to turn to you next. But my next question is going to be, how do you balance asking for help and support and talking about your symptoms and side effects with not crossing that line of, oh gosh, am I just complaining? Are they going to think I'm complaining? Like especially living with a terminal disease where unlike some other people who maybe just see the doctors once a couple times a year, we're seeing them all the time.
I felt like when I moved from Idaho to here that I had control of, my body, and I knew what, I knew to listen to it and knew, what I could and couldn't do. And then that seizure just blew it all away. And
just kind of like asking, like, as you're thinking about this and hearing about the role that palliative care can play in your life, like what's kind of going through your head right now? Is this something, and I'm just kind of putting you on the spot of like, at your next appointment, are you going to ask about it? Is it going to be back in your toolkit?
I will ask about it with my oncologist. I'm not a huge fan of my neuro, but I think she's on board. She would definitely refer me to somebody. I like her. She's great. I miss Idaho sometimes because they just, if I said something, oh, here, go to get acupuncture, go get a massage. And it was all within, where here I have never been offered anything like that at all. And I think I need to ask about palliative care. Last thing I want is any more medications because too much already. And I'm on Xeloda as well. So that's harsh for me. And I just feel I need to go see them because I do have issues I would like to take care of.
Yeah. And it's hard to ask for help and support and to not even know what's available or not available to you in the centers of where you're being treated. So if I turn back to the rest of the team, going back to that question of how do we support Aimee and all of those other listeners? Do I ask? How do I even know what to ask? We're just trying to take care of ourselves.
All it is building the team and having more people there to be looking over your chart and making sure that you're getting what you need. Sometimes it takes stuff off of the oncologist's plate. Like for me, she no longer has to prescribe my pain medications. Palliative care does all of that. So I haven't really heard of oncologists not wanting you to go see palliative care. I think they would encourage it.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, don't be afraid to become that patient because you're the one that you or your tight circle, you have to advocate for yourself. And just because the doctors don't always ask the questions that we have answers to doesn't mean they don't need to know. So with the palliative care, like I said earlier, nothing was too silly or small. When I'm shedding, I'm on my first line for MBC and I've shed 3 times. So when I'm shedding and I feel it, the hairs on my arms or on my legs, I itch. And even if I'm wearing a hat, just the fact that I know that can happen makes me itch, which is something that the palliative care doctor said, okay, great. I'm going to go get this for the itch. It was an over-the-counter thing. and it was great. It really worked, maybe in my mind. And she also gave me Xanax. So, when the itch became unbearable because, chemo, dry skin, scratching, bleeding, right? So we didn't want to get there. So the Xanax helped take the edge off of that. And, but who knew to say I was itchy? What's going on? Well, since you asked, I have this itch all over. And under normal circumstances, I wouldn't have put it together, like to tell my oncologist, I'm so itchy. But you really have to tell, whatever it is, it might not be related to what you're going through, specifically with cancer. It might be, but if there's somebody there who can help you in one way or another, alleviate anything that you're feeling, then you should absolutely take advantage of it.
And being able to connect those dots, right? Like you were saying, do I bring up that I'm itchy? So I don't know why. But then for your team to also say, okay, it's also creating a level of anxiety of just knowing that this is happening and to really be able to treat you as the whole person, not just the symptom.
I'm curious if, do they talk to the doctors? Like, if it's a referral from the oncologist, they talk to all my doctors, I'm hoping, because I am really tired of being the person that has to tell this doctor what this doctor said and that doctor. And
Great question.
So
I can speak to that if you don't mind.
Yes, Kacie, go right ahead.
Yes, Aimee, the short answer to that is yes. Your palliative care physician should be coordinating the team. In last fall, I had my liver enzymes shot up and I was worried, and my oncologist said that's not my role. We think it's not us. My primary care physician was like, I'm not sure what to do here. And so I pulled my palliative care specialist back in because I'm also like Hillary on my first line. I've maintained my palliative care specialist sort of stepped into the background. I pulled her back in and said, I need your help. They aren't talking to each other and I need this whole picture put together because I am not separate systems. And she had the conversation and she said, okay, this is what we think. This is what we'd like to try next. You're within your right to ask your oncologist for a scan to make sure that that's not the cancer returning. And with working with them and her working with them, we learned that I was actually drinking some tea that was affecting my meds and making them more intense. And so I stopped drinking the tea and things have calmed back down, which my oncologist and my primary care physician were not going to get to that solution without my palliative care specialist wrangling everything together. And in theory, that's how it's supposed to work. Like that person will coordinate amongst physicians and you know how they have a different language. They speak at a different level for their acronyms and whatnot. So like they can put that together and keep them on the same level without us misinterpreting or saying something incorrectly or whatever. So again, everyone should have palliative care.
I'm signing up. I'm asking today.
Amazing. One question that I have, and Kacie, maybe I'll kick this one back over to you in terms of finding resources. Aimee, I'm excited. Just in this conversation alone, we went from not knowing really what it was, understanding, do I need one, to now signing up and signing up in like quotes, right? Like you're going to go ask and get the care and support that you are looking for and deserve. But Kacie, where can people go, whether it's talking to their doctor for a referral or if they are not being treated at a center where they have these palliative care specialists? I'm kind of thinking and bringing you in, Joyce, because you had so many different experiences of trying to find support. But Kacie, I think you have some insights of what people can do.
I do. My palliative care specialist told me about getpalliativecare.org, which is a website that people can go to. I've not needed it because I have a palliative care specialist who I love and adore. But if this is her first source for people to go to, even if you're in a rural community, it's a good place to start. A lot of the larger academic institutions will likely have this service available. But if you don't have a relationship with them and maybe you love your team and you don't want to go away from them, start with getpalliativecare.org and see what you can find through there. And hopefully they'll find someone that can work with you and take good care of you.
Awesome. And we'll put that link and reference also in our show notes so that people can click on it and find it immediately.
Thank you.
So we've talked about all things palliative care. I really appreciated today's conversation, all of your wisdom and experiences and the diversity of experiences, having access to palliative care physicians in an early stage setting, as well as knowing to ask for it in a late stage setting, and answering my burning questions of what really happens in those meetings, what happens in those conversations behind closed doors. So thank you all for being here today, sharing with our community, and we will do this again. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to our show. I would like to acknowledge that all of the information on our podcast is from personal experiences and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. You should always contact your medical care team. If you are looking for specific topics or would like to be a guest on our show, please feel free to reach out. My email is laura@survivingbreastcancer.org. Our show is made possible by our nonprofit, survivingbreastcancer.org, and by our incredible donors like yourself. You can hop on over to survivingbreastcancer.org to sign up for our mailing list, make a donation, and explore the 400 plus programs we offer each year at survivingbreastcancer.org/events. Until next time, keep on thriving.